Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
Let's play a game. It's called, Is This Woman Crazy or Brilliant?
A lot of these plants we eat, like carrots, people think are food. They're not food.
Pause. Yeah, you heard correctly. She just said carrots are not food. I bet you weren't expecting that. I know I wasn't. So what's the answer to the question, crazy or brilliant? Crazy. She's clearly crazy. Carrots are food. Full stop. But here's the problem. How would her more than 1 million followers answer that question? How would the hundreds of paying attendees to her own conference answer that question? You were looking at one of the internet's hottest rising food gurus. I'm not going to say her name, and I'll explain why in a second. But about a year ago, she started making videos on social media. They blew up, got tens of millions of views, big profits, yada yada. You've heard the story before. What makes her unique is not her fast rise, but how she did it. Let's review. This woman is taking reasonable people, telling them carrots are not food, and these reasonable people are responding with, oh yeah, I believe you. So what's happening here? This is not a video about carrots. What I do is review logic. And when I saw her video, I knew I had to examine exactly how her reasoning is working. So I began by making a visualization of her argument. I discovered she's using some really sophisticated manipulation techniques, like persuasion architecture, unique logical fallacies, while tapping into some cognitive biases in a way that I've never seen before. Needless to say, I was impressed. Which leads me to change my answer. She may be crazy, yes, but she's also brilliant in an evil sort of way. The nutrition space is uniquely complicated. It's so full of bad information. It's like you need multiple degrees just to make heads or tails of anything. And yet, food is very important. I eat it every single day. A lot of people do. Additionally, it's entangled with our emotions. That's why food gurus like her exist. Regular people, vulnerable people go to things like her conference seeking guidance about food, but instead they get slammed with these potent psychological manipulations for the profit of some wannabe Viking lady. Seeing that sort of exploitation just kind of makes me mad. That's why I spent way too much time making this video to visualize exactly how her deceit works. But you ask, how can I possibly do that? I don't have multiple degrees in nutrition science, if that isn't already clear. In this video, I am going to prove unequivocally that this woman is a master manipulator, and I'm going to do so using nothing but her own words and the science of logic. I'm going to go through her argument point by point, putting names to her manipulation techniques and visualizing how they work. So you can then take that and build your own mental model of understanding and fortify yourself against manipulators like this lady. And after we've collected this data, we'll calculate her own personal logic score and finally rank her on the bad logic hall of shame. And quick tease, this bedazzled barbarian lady, well, she's a special one. So let's examine the logic. Okay, earlier I mentioned I'm not going to say her name. For one, she doesn't need any more attention. The other thing is I don't want to deal with her followers because frankly what I'm about to say is not very supportive of their dear leader. This is a small channel and I put a lot of work into these videos and I don't want to deal with their nonsense. So hit that like button, share it with a friend who may enjoy it, and if you care about logic, then subscribe for more content. It helps a lot. If you already know how a logic instant replay works, then feel free to jump to the next chapter. But if you're new here, here's what I do. Just like an instant replay in sports, the goal of a logic instant replay is to slow things down so we can visualize and figure out exactly how the logic is working, which then allows us to isolate the deception, put it to the side, and reveal exactly the true meaning of the argument. This is done so in an argument review map. And the process follows an acronym called CLEAR. C is for conclusion, which she states very clearly. Carrots are not food. This is our North Star, and everything we are about to do is directed towards this conclusion. L is for labels. It's important that we are all on the same page as far as the meaning of terms, ideas, etc. Because if different people have different ideas of what a term actually means, we're just going to be arguing past one another, and we want to avoid that. Immediately, I can see that we need to add food. Now, Food may seem obvious enough, but I always thought that carrots are food. So we're making a note of this label because it's actually super critical since her whole argument is based on the idea that carrots are not food. E is for evidence, which we'll find in her verbatim argument. Let's highlight the different premises and evidence of her argument. Let's number them, reference them in the evidence category. Now let's add that visual map of her argument. With the premises moving towards the conclusion, you can see that these three sections correspond and are color coordinated. And A is for assess. This is the fun part. Let's do that now.
And once you know this, you can't unknow it.
Bam, strong start. This is not a premise or a piece of evidence. It is a really clever framing device. It's the very first thing that she says, so it affects everything that comes after it, including the conclusion. And I'm going to put it in the argument map like this. Basically, what it does is it primes the audience in one brilliant way, and that is it disarms their critical thinking. It politely says, hey, don't question what I'm about to tell you, just believe it. This is exactly what a manipulator wants to accomplish. You know, not to mention that it has this like youthful meme quality to it. Once you know, you can't not know. It's brilliant. It's just freaking brilliant. Okay, here's her first premise.
A lot of these plants we eat, like carrot, people think are food. They're not food. The orange carrot was created at the turn of the 18th century, and we act like they've been around since the turn of time.
You know what? I'm going to give her that one. I do act like that. I mean, just ask my friends. I'm like a broken record. Carrots have been around since the turn of time. She uses the word create. So she implies this is bad. Why is it bad? She doesn't say now or later. So she's keeping it ambiguous. There's this effectiveness in ambiguity. Don't explain yourself if you don't have to. Plant a seed of fear and doubt. Also, don't explain something that has no explanation. All right, let's do a quick thought experiment. Can you think of any food in the produce section of the grocery store that has not changed in the past 250 years? Let's look at this watermelon from the 1600s. Does that ancient piece of crap look good to you? No. Look at all that white sinewy stuff where there should be red. We all know that the white part is gross. Thank God our ancestors from the 1600s created watermelons as we know them. Here's the thing. Sometimes just as important as what you do say is what you do not say. That all food is created. Speaking of ancestors, her premise here is tapping into a cognitive bias we all have that in logic we call the wisdom of the ancients, where people assume that ideas from the past are inherently superior. This cognitive bias is written in our cultural DNA and is basically that we're programmed to trust the people that came before us. Most cognitive biases have an evolutionary reason for why they exist. They used to serve a positive function. And here's a living example of this. There are still indigenous groups that live off the land. And the ones that gather their food from the coast need to know that some shellfish are poisonous. These indigenous peoples know perfectly well which ones not to eat. But here's the thing. If you ask them why they shouldn't eat it, they have no idea. They don't even know it's poisonous. All they know is that it's their custom not to eat it. That custom is created from a verbal tradition of one generation telling the next not to eat it. So you see, this cognitive bias is manifesting in a strong trust of the younger generation towards the elder one. Conversely, that if individuals that do not have this bias, they eat the poisonous shellfish, and then they get taken out of the gene pool. This is how the cognitive bias serves this positive evolutionary role. Keeps people alive. She knows really well that this bias runs strong in us. In fact, her whole paleo diet guru shtick is based on this bias. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying she's exploiting that. Okay, let's move on. But before we do, if you like this work and you want to help create more Logic Instant Replays, then you can become a paid member on the Patreon. Link for that is below in the description.
The turn of time.
This is a wild carrot, also known as Queen Anne's lace. They're far from the sweet and tender carrots we're used to. Through selective breeding practices that began in the 18th century, agronomists transformed these wild roots into the big orange carrots we see today.
Much of her argument comes from this documentary telling us the story of carrots made in the 18th century, bred from Queen Anne's lace. Carrots used to be something else, and now we've changed them through selective breeding. Again, what's wrong with selective breeding? So I see a logical fallacy here. This is circular reasoning. The orange carrot is bad because it's young, and it's young because it's been transformed. I'm going to add that in. It's unclear to me what this is saying. Like, the wording is weird. I wouldn't call carrots tender. As I went down a rabbit hole to find more on this documentary, I was about to do a reverse image search for this weird JPEG. And then I thought, why is this weird JPEG in this documentary? And then it hit me. The narrator is an AI voice.
This is a wild carrot.
You see what she's done here? She's made her own fake documentary to support her baseless argument. Like, wow. I don't think I have ever seen that before. I mean, her premises and evidence suck, so she needs it. You know, there's this idea of weasel authority. We see it in the form of researchers have found, experts believe. It's an empty way to create credibility. I think she's actually extending this weasel authority into weasel logic. And in doing this, she has created a new bias, which I've never seen before. And I would have to call this the English accent bias. And I have to hand it to her. That's an innovative way to sell a lifestyle. Good for her. But as an American, I have to say I hate it because I think we can do better.
What are you talking about, Ben? Americans are bloody brilliant and attractive, and literally everything they do is good and right.
I mean, he brings up a good point. And finally, to this premise, she has omitted a couple important facts. First, the orange carrot has been around longer than the 1800s. We see it in this painting dated 1553. But that doesn't even matter compared to this. She says the orange carrot was bred from the wild root, Queen Anne's lace. No. It was bred from the yellow carrot, which has been around for thousands of years. She left that out because it would be very, very inconvenient to this argument that she's trying to create. And that's why I act like it's been around since the turn of time, because it has.
What most people don't know is that Queen Anne's lace, the root itself, was used as the morning after pill. It is so toxic, it will abort a fetus.
Wait, what? Isn't it thrilling to learn something that overturns what you thought you knew, and now you know better? This is not one of those times. What she just said is not true on several levels. Let's add some terminology. Her premise is carrot is toxic, and her evidence is root will cause abortion. Yikes. So this actually has the elements of a solid premise because it gives us something that supports the conclusion, which did not happen in the last premise. But in order to visualize this BS, I first need to tell a story. In the course of human history, it appears that some ancient peoples, like the ancient Greeks, would take Queen Anne's lace, grind it up into a paste to prevent a pregnancy. Did it work? Honestly, this is irrelevant to examining her logic. What is relevant is the part of the plant that they used to do this. It was not the
Root itself.
It was the seeds. They ground up the seeds to make a paste. The root is what became the carrot, the part we eat, the part that you can still eat today, except it's just a less good carrot. So her primary evidence is based on a simple untruth. But wait, there's more. Here's a simplified version of her position. This is so aggressively wrong, I can't help but think it's intentional. She's lying to her audience, which I'm actually super surprised she's doing because it is so risky for her. Because if her audience recognizes this lie, I feel like being lied to is so universally terrible, they're gonna run the other way. So what she does is she conceals that lie under layers of bad reasoning. So let's visualize them. There's the lie, there's a category mistake, and emotional language. I just want to say real quick that I'm getting into these details because manipulative people suck. And I believe when we literally see examples of how their manipulation works, then it strips them of their power. So let's build a mental model that resists manipulators by putting names to what she's doing. So what the heck is a category mistake? It's when you take an idea that exists in one category and inappropriately apply it to this category. Here's an example. An octopus is a weird fish. Well, no, not really. They're both sea creatures, but they're not both fishes. The category mistake for our example is right here. Everyone's favorite a word. Let's first talk about the morning after pill. If you didn't know how it worked and you were only going off of what her words imply, you would think you would take a pill and it would flood your body with enough toxins and it would just kill anything in there. That sounds bad, right? Well, that's not how it works. How it actually works is super clever. The morning after pill is a dosage of hormones that tells the body not to release an egg. Just wait a couple days. So because there's no egg, there's no pregnancy, which last time I checked makes it literally impossible to have an abortion. So how does the category mistake apply to our example? The thing that contraceptives and abortion share is this abstract concept of a baby not existing. In that way, they're similar. How they get there is completely different. But you see, because she does not have a good argument, her tactic here is to erase those differences. And then she takes it a step further. A fetus is a prenatal human offspring at least 8 weeks old. The hormones of the morning after pill or Queen Anne's lace do not affect a fetus. But using this category mistake and mashing together these two things that are not the same, you're bringing all this emotional baggage along. I mean, even talking about this non-existent reality, I find myself getting a little emotional. What about you? These emotions basically act as a sleight of hand to distract people from very bad reasoning. I said before that her premises are staged to be good, and if she could give evidence on how the root is toxic, then they would be effective. But of course, it's BS. So to make her argument work, she has to insist all these things that are not true. She has to lie about history. She has to misrepresent what contraceptives are, and she lies about what it does to a fetus. I mean, I can't. Let's do a little psychology here. When your argument is so lazy, she's got to have this grandiose view of herself when she thinks she can get away with this. Like, really, what is she? Is she a sociopath? Is she a narcissist? If you think you know, let me know in the comments.
Will abort a fetus. And yes, it's not as toxic now that we've bred the poison out of them.
Oh, thank God, she's come around. She very clearly knows this is all sin.
But this is the root, and we're feeding them to our kids, and it's gotta stop. I don't want to see babies eating herbs that are able to abort a fetus.
What just happened? They're not toxic, but don't feed them to our kids. Actually, as a logic guy, I'm pumped to see this because this is kind of special. This is a clear fallacy of formal logic. By formal logic, I mean how the sentences are structured and how that affects the reasoning. Here's an example of what I mean. If toxicity is present, then don't eat. If toxicity is not present, then eat. You see, formal logic is math-like. What she said, if not T, then not E. Invalid. It's clear as day. I say it's special to see because it's rare you get an opportunity to review formal logic. I'll never forget sitting down in my very first logic class and seeing all these math equations up on the screen and thinking, what the heck is this? I didn't sign up for a math class on accident, did I? It's stuff like, if A, then B, therefore C. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. What I was looking at were formal logical arguments. And that's the first thing they teach you in a logic class because it's a good place to begin because it's so clear and black and white. You can then expand it to informal logic, which is the logic that we all deal with at any given day. Call it human logic. But then you never see formal logic again because human beings, logic in the real world, is never that black and white. But here it is. Our barbarian Viking woman is so bad at logic, she's actually using invalid formal logic. Wow, she's special. In fact, she is so special, we should also examine her logic in an informal sense. So what she's doing here is presenting an argument that is basically smashing together two opposing positions. I call this rhetorical deception sandwiching. It's safe, but we can't risk it with our kids. It's actually really brilliant, rhetorically speaking. She finally levels with us. She says, I'll give it to you guys. We all know carrots are not actually toxic. It disarms us. We think, oh, thank God she's reasonable. But then she pulls a rug out from us. She follows immediately with the threat of the greatest stakes. We can't give it to our kids, the baby's safety. So she creates this disorienting, unspecified fear. We don't know what to think, so we just have to go with the safe choice and believe her. Whatever you say, lady, I just don't want my baby having a fetus. You see, in the course of a sentence, it's pretty effective, but when we hit pause, put it in writing, she looks like a fool.
Herbs that are able to abort a fetus. That is what Queen Anne's lace looks like.
Okay, now she's just dirt shaming a root vegetable. Would you say that about a potato? You could describe this as an ad hominem attack because this part of her argument avoids any substance about the carrot or Queen Anne's lace and just calls it ugly. I made a dedicated video about the ad hominem. I'll put a link in the description below.
This is what Queen Anne's lace looks like. And this is what we've created today. This is the clown food. Do you guys see it? You see how it looks like it should be in a circus?
Oh, I get it. She's confusing circuses with a farmer's market. This entire part of the argument is a logical fallacy called begging the question. It's a form of circular reasoning where she's taking the conclusion, using it as a premise, and just assuming people will take it as truth. This is one of the most empty, silly premises I have ever heard, and this is why she thinks she can get away with it. Because she has created this authority image of herself. The optics, the stage, the theatrics, the lights, the screens, the hair, the dumb rat skin scarf she's wearing. All of this has added up to this image of an authority that is its own form of argumentation. Yet again, she's tapping into this really strong cognitive bias that in logic we call an appeal to authority or an authority bias. She thinks she can get away with it, saying ridiculous bullshit, factual inaccuracies. She's getting people to doubt basic reality. And if you look at her comments, the vast majority of them are super supportive. What can critical thinking do about that? Let's score her logic. But how, you may ask? Her argument, any argument, is subjective and squishy. It's more complex than just right or wrong. Well, for that, we have the logic score 9,000. Never before in history has logic been so clearly definable. It works by taking the individual elements of an argument, the quality of the premises, and balances that with the strength of the logic, all the information we just collected. And then it uses a weighted equation to boil down that information into a single measurement. And that is cogency. That's all we care about. Then we can take that number and use it to rank her in the bad logic hall of shame. Let's review. Let's begin with the most basic elements, and that is labels and terminology. Here are the important labels that she used. I'm looking at selective breeding. What's wrong with selective breeding? She just did not provide evidence to why we should be suspicious of this. The biggest red flag here is the most important term, and that is food. She gave us very little insight on why carrots are not food. She even said that carrots are food, but just food for clowns, which is a problem because clowns are people too. So this means that every premise that she has created has an ambiguous term in there, which means every premise is squishy. So each category within begins at 100% and we mark it down based off of strikes. I'm going to give her a 5, which is frankly generous. Okay, let's look at her basic facts. The crux of both premise 1 and 2 are based on multiple untruths. Premise 3 is the kind of untruth an idiot would use. This one's easy. Its score is 1. Every premise is based off just a complete untruth that is easily proven. Getting fired up. Next, let's talk about omissions. Sometimes the only thing more important than what you do say is what you do not say. Every beat of premise 1 is comprised by important information that is left out. Orange carrots existed in the 1500s. We have a painting of that. Yellow and purple carrots existed for thousands of years. She's not going to put this stuff in that hurts her BS argument. I am going to give her a score of 3, which I also think is generous. Next, let's look at the contamination of her premises. When I check for contamination, I use another acronym called FROFSCUM. There are 4 big logical fallacies I'm seeing, not to mention the formal fallacy. The rhetorical devices, I'm seeing about 5. She hits the classic of killing babies rhetorical device. You know, using emotion isn't wrong per se. When you use it to cover up bad logic, then it is a BS rhetorical device. This is not normal how densely these are packed. So let's check out the cognitive biases. I'm seeing 3 big ones. Let's not forget about the English accent cognitive bias used in a fake documentary. Just embarrassing. And then everything is just overarching authority bias, which again, I think she thinks she can get away with this because of this perception she has of herself. Not on my watch, lady. And then everything begins with this framing device. Once you see this, you just cannot unsee how bad this logic is. Premise 3 is actually pure contamination. 10, clearly. It'd be 11 if I could, but I can't. Okay, really important part of cogency is the quality of the premises. I think we've already decided that the premises are terrible. Big part of that is how well grounded they are. How well are they based in provable support? She uses history, but it's really cherry picked and also just completely fabricated. She made a fake documentary that doesn't support her conclusion. Wow. I guess technically P2 does support the conclusion, even though it's baseless. So I'm going to give her a 3. All right, finally, let's talk about strength of argument. This is the whole dang point. Let's do a thought experiment about premise 1. Suppose everything in premise 1 is true. Does that information support the conclusion? No, it does not. That makes premise 1 a non sequitur. Premise 3, also a complete non sequitur. Argument strength 3. Okay, this is the moment of truth. It's taken a lot to get here. I'm kind of exhausted. Logic score 9,000. Do your thing. What? 0? Is this thing working? Yes. It is working probably. Yeah, this is pure bullshit. Her BS is so densely packed you could bounce a quarter off of it. And let's not forget that she is making money off of this reel. And she's finding so much success that in the course of editing this video, she decided to raise her prices more than 30%. Millions of people have seen this. It just, it gets me. It gets me. We have only one thing left to do, and that is to rank her in the Bad Logic Hall of Shame. Play the music. She's number 1, obviously, for a couple of reasons, one of which she's the first one I'm doing, but I picked her first. I just knew she was so special. Her logic is just so atrocious. This is obviously part of a series. I have a lot of other really interesting people to review. Can they beat her? I don't know. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you don't miss any of those reviews. All right, that's it. I want to thank my Patreons. I especially want to thank Allie. Thank you, Allie, for being a Patreon. If you would like to support more Logic Instant Replay, then check out that link for Patreon below in the description. And if you want to nominate a video that you see for Logic Instant Replay, then just DM me a link on the socials at Framing Logic.
Okay, on a scale from 1 to amazing, how amazing was this video? You got a shout out from Tectone.
It's not about equity instead of equality at all.
28714. Nice.
We don't have material equality as a baseline in this country. We don't have that at all. I'm advocating for a baseline of material equality, and I'm advocating for better worker protections, better worker rights, and less alienation.
That's all a lie. That's a lie. What he's talking about can happen in a capitalist system, and it is explicitly not what socialism is about. It's not about materially equal conditions. That's called welfare or redistribution, which capitalism can do, right?
I will say, whether you like or hate Destiny, I think we can all agree he is definitely the strongest debater on the entire platform.
True.
Yeah, I'll be real. I enjoy listening to Destiny talk, even on issues I disagree with, because the guy can really just go in. The guy is incredibly researched and incredibly, he can talk really fast. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Hey, you were talking.
Now, once again, you can say that you hate him. That's all good. I don't care. I'm just saying, acknowledging his gift as a debater is just, I feel like it's just common sense. Destiny's fine until you mention Trump to him. I got no idea. I don't really watch much of his content. I just really like watching him rant.
Specifically about getting rid of or
Nobody tell him about yesterday? Wait, what did he do yesterday?
Nobody talking about that. Oh, no. Oh, dude. Every single thing that happens to this guy, his life must flash before his eyes. Oh, no. Oh, no. The writers are getting lazy this season. It's how many things can I repeat that Biden did without conservatives? Oh, my God. True. His bone spurs. Okay, what is all this bullshit? What do we have here?
Treaties were signed, promises made and broken. Is it stealing to take back what was stolen?
Stolen? Who's stealing them?
Us.
It's time to get out of there.
Let me introduce a friend of mine. Smart, agile, and will let you look into places with the tightest security.
probably bench press every one of them.
The locksmith strikes again. Hold on.
Listen, are you having second thoughts?
Nope. Just hoping you weren't.
What happened to the TikTok lives? I decided to not do it. I'm completely abandoning the idea. I'm just not doing it at all. I just, for no reason, it has nothing to do with the fact that I've been sick, that I've been out of town, and all that. I just completely decided not to do it. So please just keep asking over and over and over and over and over again, because that's exactly what happened. Thank you. Jesus.
Don't get me killed.
Yeah.
I know what you and your little crew are doing.
Nobody threatens my family or my friends and gets away with it. So we are going to do whatever it takes to take back Africa's belongings. And we're going to do it together.
Okay, this is cringe. I don't care. What is this?
I'm fine. Sorry. Thanks. Yeah, no problem. It's okay? Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, yeah. Sorry? Yeah, yeah.
Some water to
No water, just sugar.
Is he down?
Let me get out of the road.
Yo, yo, yo! Yo! Yo, yo, yo!
Whose fault is this? I don't even know like what he's biking on.
Yo, yo, yo! Yo!
No idea.
Yeah.
Max. Yeah.
Wait, why do we care about this? He's biking on a road bike and he's going way too fast. Oh, okay. It doesn't sound like he blamed anybody or anything, no? Did he? Or, I don't know. Okay. I don't know why the f I got.
A lot of people try to bring this up. Like, what do you think happened on January 6th? It was awful. January 6th was really bad. I mean, I've said this 55 times. The thing is that a lot of people try to bring this up. Like, I don't give a fuck about January 6th. That shit happened years ago.